All right. Hello, hello. We are live, everyone. Welcome to Thrive Outside. And let's kick it off, Peter. What are we talking about today?
Oh, well, first of all, Melanie, thanks for setting this up. Thanks for putting
Yeah.
us in a live forum. It's exciting and a little bit nerve-wracking. Um, we're excited today to talk to you about the impact that spending time outdoors and in nature can have, not just on your wellness, but also in helping you with your performance, particularly performance in your professional endeavors. Um, and we've got four of us here on the call today that are excited to be talking to you about all things related to nature and wellness and performance. And we'll get to introduce each other in just a moment. Um, Mel, are the slides up or do we need to go live
Yep.
with them?
I'll go
They're up.
ahead and pull those up right now. Thrive
Wonderful.
outside. Oops. All right. Here we go.
So,
And there we go.
wonderful. So, as several of you may be attending this live through LinkedIn, you'll have the opportunity to make comments in the comment section, and Mel will be doing a great job of fielding those for us. So we make sure that we include you in this conversation. Um, as we settle in, if you have any specific thoughts on what compelled you to show up today, what are you hoping to get out of this? We would love to hear from you. And
Awesome.
while those start to come in, we'll go ahead and click on the agenda. In just a moment, the four of us will introduce ourselves. We'll do a little bit of a check-in exercise, which, because we're not all on screen, will be an invitation for each of you to reflect on something. And if it feels right, you can drop your own thoughts into the comments. We'll talk a little bit on what is the case for the outdoors and in taking care of ourselves, in helping us solve our most challenging problems, in playing a role as a coach along with the coach that we're working with. And then our friend and colleague from outside of evolution, Chrissy Borick, is here, and she's going to talk to us. Chrissy is a health coach, and she's going to talk to us about some connections with wellness and performance around sleep and light. We know we're all at a time of year where we're getting a whole lot less light, and some of us are noticing a big increase in our need for sleep. So what are the implications for us? And then we want to give you a chance to turn it back to yourself and reflect on what is your own relationship with nature and what might be a way that you'd like to leverage some time in nature to help you achieve your goals. We've got a lot to cover in
Awesome.
this hour, so let's just go ahead and jump into it with some introductions.
Yeah. Thanks, Peter. Hey, everyone. I'm Melanie Gordon. You can call me Mel. I am an avid snowboarder. I'm new to backcountry touring. I just got my wilderness first responder cert. I'm Avalanche One certified. I'm an avid mountain biker, and also an executive coach and partner at Evolution. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Peter.
Thanks, Mel. Hi, everyone. I'm Peter Gandolfo. I'm a partner and executive coach at Evolution. My background was in marketing roles at companies like Mattel and Ford. I transitioned into leadership development by joining the Drunker Institute. And in my coaching practice today, I work with individuals and teams, including nonprofit, for-profit, and education. You can see a sample of some of the clients that I've worked with on screen. I was particularly drawn to doing this work because I've generated an awareness recently that I had some distance from the outdoors, and it's only through some work with some of the people even on this screen that I've realized that outdoors is often where I feel most myself. And go back to February 2020, I was on a ski lift with my friend Gavin and had the inspiration that we were doing some coaching, which is something we naturally do when we're hanging out, and realized the combination of some isolated time on a ski lift and then time to move our bodies and process on the way down seemed like a natural fit to integrate with some self-discovery and tackling some of the most challenging issues. So we'll talk about more about that, but I want to go ahead and click to the next slide and let Jody introduce herself.
Yay, thanks so much. I'm so happy to be here and sitting with this group and Facebook Live. Very exciting.
LinkedIn Live.
Oh my gosh, I just
It's
did
okay. It's okay.
Terrible faux pas. I'm also a partner at Evolution. I work with lots of corporate clients, but my background is like largely in the natural world. And one of my great joys is bringing, thinking about how humans tick, what really works for us in terms of what holds us back, what brings us forward. And the natural world is just such a perfect environment to explore all of our edges. It's one of the another piece about being outside and chairlift coaching in particular that I think is so perfect, where we do get to have the reflection time, the movement time, the curiosity time. It's just a wonderful blend. So I'm really excited to be having this conversation and see where it takes us.
Thank you.
Chrissy.
Chrissy.
Hi, everybody. I am Chrissy Borick, and I am just excited and honored and a little nervous to be live as well here with everybody at Evolution. I am currently a health coach and also work as a consultant during the day. My background has been in learning and development, so I've always had this natural propensity to help people I think improve their performance on their job, help them do their job better. And so that's kind of been like my kind of corporate job. I came into health coaching through the experience of actually having one a couple of years ago when I was just sort of kind of stuck in some of my own I think health and wellness journey. I'd always been a pretty motivated individual, but found I needed some partnership through some obstacles that I was having. And, through my journey as a health coach through functional medicine, which is really kind of taking a look at the root cause and trying to, figure out what are more some of those natural lifestyle changes that you can make instead of, kind of jumping into more of those more pharmaceutical interventions. I really started to connect more with nature as a way of healing. And, there is a lot of research out there about, I think just sunlight and sounds and being part of the natural cycle of things that really can improve anyone's, I think just, overall mood, sleep, performance. So that's a little bit of my coaching philosophy too. Like, what can we do when we work together that is free, natural, and available to us? So that's where I like to start.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
Thanks,
thank you guys.
Chrissy. Welcome,
Yeah.
welcome.
So as we were planning this session and talking amongst ourselves, we're like kind of sharing some little snippets about like, well, when did you first, realize this connection piece? And so we wanted to invite everyone to put into the chat, what is that time for you when you realize it's like, we walk day to day through the world. We're always in the natural world, like everything, including my lunch, and the Tupperware, right? It's all part of the system, but we don't tend to see it as that. So, when did you have it might have been an aha moment, but it might have been more subtle of just noticing. It's like, oh, here I am. I'm part of this thing. I'm connected to it. And what was that like? So we wanted to riff on that piece a little bit. So please give us your thoughts online and we'll explore a little bit as well.
I have really fond memories of growing up at the lake and camping. I now live not too far away from that lake. So I'm in Reno, near Lake Tahoe. And the other giant lake here that most people don't know about is Pyramid Lake. And that is the lake in which Tahoe empties into. And my grandfather lived on his boat out there at Pyramid Lake. And so I have memories and pictures and stories from my parents of spending weeks and weeks and summers as a little baby and a toddler out on my grandpa's boat on this lake. So that's probably one of my earliest memories of the natural world.
That's so awesome.
That's very cool. My first memory in life in general is being in an infant class swimming. It was in an indoor pool, but it feels quite fitting that's my first memory because I've always been very drawn to the water. And so whether it was going to the beach, where I continue to feel this way, that it puts all of my biggest problems into perspective and the world feels a lot more manageable, to a lot of my childhood was spent going to a lake, a man-made lake, unfortunately, with not a lot of wind, but with my family to go sailing.
Love it.
Well, I can relate to that, Peter. I think always as a child, and I have pictures of this, maybe not memories until maybe I was 5 or 6, but we always went to the beach on vacation. That was kind of how both sides of my family actually, just went to relax. And so I just have these great memories of like sitting, watching the waves, being out in the sun, and just having, kind of a lot of fun and even being creative, like, making the sandcastles. And I was a big shell collector too. So I always kind of brought some of nature home with me that sat in, one of those old cigar boxes in the corner. But yeah, I think being near water is always very, very important for me as well.
Love it.
That stirs so many memories of my childhood, like being at the cabin and on the lake. And I love that thread and just how powerful water is and how it draws us as humans to like want to be there for rest and relaxation. And but it's not the one that I thought about before you started talking, because I think it was so like familiar that it almost was like not a recognition that it was like this thing, it's just like what our family did. And so the one that came to mind when I was thinking about that, like kind of like, whoa, I'm like connected to this thing, was that there was this really, really big, I don't even know what kind of tree it was. Maybe it was an oak tree. I don't know. Some giant tree, like outside of my family's house, not even on our property as the neighbors, but it was the place that I went when I was really stressed out. And I would climb up into the great big branches of that tree and just like be part of the forest when it was hard to be part of home. Yeah.
That resonates a lot, Jody.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing. We're going to keep going on our journey here, and Peter's going to run us through the big case for the outdoors and the natural world. Yes.
And before I jump into that, one thing I just want to acknowledge is I think the four of us just shared examples that were quite positive around the role that nature played. And for some of you, myself included, you might also have some stories from different stages of your life where it didn't feel as comfortable or familiar. And so I want to make space for those pieces as well. And we'll talk more about it in a bit. But so what is the case for the outdoors on wellness? We're going to share a couple of examples of some research that supports this. This is from a report from Yale on ecopsychology and how the immersion in nature benefits your health. There was this study of 20,000 people, and they found that 2 hours, 120 minutes weekly spent in green spaces had a significant impact on good health and psychological well-being. And what was really fascinating is it didn't need to be 2 hours at once. It could be smaller segments of time as long as it collectively added up to 120 minutes over the course of the week. And you can see there's a list of amazing benefits: lower blood pressure and stress hormone levels, reduced nervous system arousal, enhanced immune system function, increased self-esteem, reduced anxiety. When they think about the people that we're working with as coaches, these are often some of the things that they are needing or wanting to address to combat what it's like to be a human in 2023. Mm-hmm. Let's go to the next slide.
Yeah.
So another study, and this one was represented in the Surgeon General's recent report. And if some of you haven't heard of it, the Surgeon General really kind of sounded an alarm that there is this epidemic of loneliness that is going on in the United States. And one of the reports found that being in nature reduced feelings of isolation. It promoted calm and it lifted mood among patients, specifically patients in a psychiatric unit. And so, sure, coming out of the pandemic, for a lot of us, there's this awareness of a need to be around people to feel less lonely. But nature can also play a role in helping us feel less lonely and less alone. And this other study is showing that participants who reported using social media for more than 2 hours a day had double the odds of reporting increased perceptions of social isolation versus those who use social media for less than 30 minutes a day. So if there was ever a call for me to put down my phone and my social media and take a step outdoors, it's details like this. Go to the next slide.
Mhm.
And so some of you maybe have been very familiar with these terms. A lot of them were new to me, but this idea of forest bathing, which is a somewhat fancy word for describing walking in the woods. And one study found that there was spending time in the woods increased NK, or natural killer cells, which are super effective in fighting tumors and infection. Now, yes, being in nature is helpful to this, but you could even get some of the benefit in being in a hotel room that had cedar essential oils. So even if you don't have you're not in a position to be outside in nature, there's ways that you can think of leveraging some of those benefits from nature indoors.
One of the things that I really love about all of these slides, Peter, is that like it doesn't say like wilderness or hardcore or you've got to go to some extreme place. It's like your first picture was like bicycles in a park. It's like I think it's easy to think about outdoors and nature as something that's like beyond our access. And
Right.
I love all of your pieces here on just how we can get there. And it's really just about small doses of getting and being in relationship with, taking time to be in that space.
Right. Not all of us have to decide that an outward bound experience or
Although
some
everyone should.
really extreme trek is the only option. Kudos to those of you that do want to do that. And if that's not where you're at, there are smaller steps you can do that are potentially just right outside your door.
Absolutely.
You gonna address this one, Peter, or am
Yeah.
I jumping in on this one?
I'll say a few things, and then I'd love, Jody, for you to jump in on this. But I talked a little bit about why I love going to the ocean, and so much of it is because it puts things in perspective. And in preparing for these talks, I found this report on the science of awe. And it talks about why this phenomenon happens. One is this perception of vastness. When we see something that's so much bigger than us, it helps put things in perspective. The other part of this is the need for accommodation. For instance, when a stimulus exceeds our expectations in some way, it can often provoke an attempt to change the mental structures that we use to understand the world. It's challenging us to think about things in a different way. And awe is often accompanied by feelings of self-diminishment and increased connectedness with other people. Jody, what would you add to this?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking, it's like I wondered if it'd be interesting to just pop around a little bit of like when we've experienced that, like have right, like that moment of that, just the speck, and I can think of it on like mountaintops or backcountry skiing. Mel, I know you're getting into that, and I'm so excited for you for that. But it's like the joy in that opens up by like putting self in true relationship. Like I am just this tiny little thing, and wow, the world is so big. And that, like, rather than that feeling terrifying, which it also can feel at times, right? it's like, whoa, it's also freeing, and it's also kind of right sizing. And for me, it's like there's something about that then also makes me want to connect with people and to like come together and be closer with others, both to share the wonderful like bigness of awe, but also to ground, right, in that like, and we have each other as we experience the world. And I think that you hit some really powerful pieces on what that does for our neuroplasticity around, really shaking up some of those old belief patterns and creating space for new opportunities, new ways of seeing the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my awe, as I was listening to that, Jody, our family vacations mostly considered of driving somewhere. And I remember very vividly the first time we drove through the redwood forest, um, and just seeing some of the tallest trees in the world, right? And that was, however many hours drive from Reno, Nevada. And that was one of our family vacations. And I remember just being in the car trying to look out the window with my brother, just going, wait, where are we? Are we on a different planet? So I cherish those, what sometimes people think is, oh God, the awful driving family vacation. I'm like, no, I got to see the world's tallest trees.
So
Now,
great.
now I find myself just hoping if we take those trips as a family that my kids are not on devices with their heads down when we're driving by those trees.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think my awe moment would have been the north rim of the Grand Canyon and sitting at the lodge there in a rocking chair, and just I could have sat there for hours.
I hear that, Peter. In 2019, I drove from New York out to California, and I've always kind of been a city kid, lived in and around cities, and had little jaunts, out to other places, but usually generally pretty close to urban areas. And I think, driving through Texas, Arizona, I finally understood what the term big sky meant. Right. And just kind of driving and the endless, you could see how people would think that the world was endless. And there was a point where you could drop off because I had just never seen such like open space and clear clouds. And so, yes, I was driving alone, and, listening to the radio. But at the same point in time, I was like, wow, this is very grounding, because all you could see was just earth, sky. There was no other person. So I think that was very recent in my life. And it's kind of started to spur on some of, other activities and really wanting to go see places outside of cities and museums. And while they have value, there's so many other things which, inspire awe and creativity that are out there.
Very cool.
Thanks, Chrissy.
Yeah.
Anything else anyone wanted to add before we go to the next slide? So go ahead and flip. So yes, there's this element of being in nature to put things in perspective and to help us solve our problems and feel less alone. And as we started to explore what are some themes and some practices that run adjacent to that, I got really excited when I was talking with Chrissy around sleep hygiene and light, and particularly how we can leverage light to support our own wellness. So I want to pass the baton to her and let her talk a bit about what she pulled together.
All right. Thank you.
Kate.
Thank you. So just a question for everyone. How, like, we all think of setting our day up for success, but this is kind of a two-part question. It goes a little bit against the coaching theory of only asking one question at a time, but the answer, there's one answer. So how can you set your day up for success and ensure a good night's sleep?
Mm-hmm.
So little hints, it's available to everybody and it's free.
Go to bed on time.
Okay. That's definitely one.
Where
Time.
where I get stuck, Chrissy,
Yeah.
and I think I know where you're headed with this, but where I get stuck is the night before. I often feel like I am making a trade-off between feeling prepared and being rested.
Mm.
So yes, I want 8 hours sleep, and I also want to make sure that I've prepared the material or whatever it is that I have to do.
Yeah. Okay. I've been there and I can absolutely relate.
My brain just keeps going to hydration. Probably because I'm like really thirsty right now, but I'm like, I don't know, but
That's
yeah, that is a good one. That is a good one. And I think there's an element of that. And, that could be another segment, perhaps.
Well, we could take a clue from your slide here and put in exercise.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I know everyone is anxiously awaiting the answer here. So really, it is about sunlight. So getting up first thing in the morning and your exposure to light. Right. So I know it's a little bit of a paradox. How can getting more light during the day and earlier in the day, right, give you better sleep? But we'll kind of unfold that here as we move along. But what studies have found, and where I think a lot of this tying, the getting out into nature with making you feel better, as Peter said, has a lot to do with exposure to natural light. So. Any thoughts or other questions here? No.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Do we need to go to the next slide?
Tell us more.
Yeah. So if we could go I'm sorry. The next slide. Yeah. So here's the light. So I'll let you guys kind of take this in now. So I think it'll get a little sciencey here, but I'll try to keep it 6th grade basic, and it probably will stay that way since I'm not a scientist. So the reason why, you feel so much better sometimes, as Peter was kind of talking about earlier, or why like there is such an impact on wellness if you are outside and you're outside just in natural light, is because, if we take it like light is energy and energy is a communicator. And getting light early in the morning helps to turn on your body to say, hey, I'm awake, right? And it helps to kick in your circadian rhythm, right? And, I think we've all kind of heard about that. And just to keep it basic, right? It's kind of when there's a clock in your body and it tells you when it should be awake and when it should be asleep, right? So what happens when you see this light in the morning is that your brain gets the signal to turn on, and then your brain sends, the signals out to the rest of your body to say, hey, like, let's turn the on switch on so you can be awake and, start your day. So if light is kind of the on switch telling you to be awake, then, darkness is on the opposite side where it's telling you, okay, we need to start winding down and preparing for sleep. So yeah, I think like, when you look at it, it's kind of like there is this, okay, why natural light, right? So why natural light? So we could go to the next slide. All right. So natural light here is, if you look on the left side here, this is what we see, right? You can see a rainbow, right? You're outside, and it's always one of those magical moments where you want to make a wish and you can see it. And the thing is that natural light carries the full spectrum of colors, right? So it carries these that we see, but if we look to the right, it carries these things that we don't see. So if you look at this, if you look in the middle, you can see the rainbow, right? But if you look to the left and to the right, those are the colors that we can't see, but we still need those because those enter our body and help to, help with our cellular function. So in terms of, how do we get this full range of spectrum of light? It's, there's 2 ways to do this. And one is your skin. So your skin is kind of a photoreceptor. So exposing your skin while being outside, like during the summer, right? You certainly probably feel better. You feel more alert. You maybe feel more relaxed. So having your skin exposed to natural light will again help kind of activate and send these signals to your body to certain cellular functions to keep them moving properly. And then, the other one that we have is our eyes, right? We have photoreceptors in our eyes. You need light in order to see. So having those two, having natural light and exposure to that. And, I know in the winter it gets a little bit colder, so we can't be outside within shorts and t-shirts, but if we are outside and, we just, are looking and we're taking in the sunlight first thing in the morning, it can help us to take those light in. And so the blue and green waves that we see here, they're called shortwave, just for all intents and purposes. That's kind of what tells us to stay awake, right, during the day. So the more that we can get that early in the morning, the longer we can stay awake. And that is also why, right, with our cell phones and our devices, the blue light, right, not wanting to put that, not wanting to sit at your computer or work at night, right, because the blue light kind of signals your body to say, I need to be awake. On the flip side, so if you look kind of here to the right on the infrared side, there's the red light, which is what they call long wave. And that helps you to start to wind down. It gives your body and your cells the signals to start to relax and to wind down and slow some things down. So taking in natural light throughout the day gives you this whole spectrum. And so it signals your body, one, to be awake and start your circadian rhythm. It signals your cells and all of the functions that go along with it for like your immune function, right? Your metabolic function, all of, those things that kind of help you get through your day, to get started. And then towards the end of the night, right, as the blue light starts to fade and we see the sunset and the sky starts to turn amber and red, it starts to signal your body just naturally to start to slow down and wind down, right?
Something I hadn't thought of until you said this, Chrissy, is I can't tell you how many times I've gone to do a team offsite and the client will say, we've booked this conference room and we've closed all the curtains so that everyone can see the slides. And what I think all of us are constantly wanting to do is, if you can't be outside, how can we make sure that you have natural light and sight lines to the outdoors and all of these things that would help you manage your energy while through the course of the day, instead of needing to turn to caffeine and Snickers bars and all kinds of junk food to keep your energy going and then crashing throughout the offsite.
Exactly. And that's a great segue into our next slide here. So, many of us work indoors in artificial light, especially in the winter and with limited sunlight exposure, and yet daylight is key to regulating daily sleep patterns. So I think that just supports, exactly what you said, Peter, right? Like how can you get more daylight even in the winter, or if you're offsite, at a retreat, or just if you're stuck in meetings in an office all day, or, you're with your kids during the day or the night, or, trying to do their homework or whatever that may look like. So, that is true. It's kind of how can we find ways to get outside and get that light for the appropriate amount of time. So we can go to the next slide. So in terms of daylight, right, we kind of left off just a little bit with getting that red, like kind of, light at night, right, like helping you to sleep. So if your circadian rhythm, if it goes on in the morning when it should, as opposed to sleeping until noon, maybe not getting as much light as you need on the weekends, right? I think, if we think about it for a second, just think about to the last time that you had a really bad night's sleep, right? Or you just it was disrupted. What was your mood like the next day? Right? What did you, yeah. And then what did you want to eat, right? Like what did you think you should eat, but what were you really wanting to eat and did eat?
I want comfort food.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then just, in terms of, again, performance, like your decision making process, what was that like? How would you describe that?
Sluggish.
Hmm.
I like my first pass would say like, well, all these other things were happening that were external to me that weren't so positive. And your question's making me think, well, what was my experience of those situations because I didn't have the sleep as opposed to the circumstances themselves?
Mm.
Mm. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So, so I think all of this together, right? It kind of just comes back to what Peter and Jody were both saying, right? What they have found and studies have found is just, lack of sleep will impact your dietary choices, right? Who said comfort food? Peter, you did, right? So, right, studies have shown there's a tendency for higher carb, higher sugar foods because those signals to your body aren't being as direct, right? Like with lack of sleep, they're not getting the rest and repair. So it's, kind of signaling things to be a little off, right? And here it is just impacting kind of those hunger hormones where you really want to eat, the comfort food. I think probably we all have known, that lower sleep just impacts your immune response. So, but emotionally too, I think what one Matthew Walker has found, he's a neuroscientist who's done some sleep research, has said your emotional responses, are 60% more likely for you to, behave in a more reactive manner than in a more like logical, even-tempered way, right? So, again, that again is just something that can impact performance, your interactions with your colleagues, right? Just even with your children, your partners. So, and then finally, just another big impact of sleep is just on your metabolic functions, right? So, I think one of the kind of things here, which, can be related to just, again, your cognitive functioning is just, there's a slower removal of just cellular toxins in your body, right? So there tends to kind of be, instead of your body resting and repairing, right, during sleep, it's kind of just still, things are still sitting there, maybe building up, maybe not kind of being processed correctly. So there's a buildup of potential proteins, which then generally what they have found is that with a certain protein and the buildup of it with lack of sleep does impact your cognitive cognitive functioning. And, I'm not one to kind of work into, the scared straight method, but just an example of what some of the studies have shown has just been, decreased sleep over time and just decreased quality of sleep over time, leaves people at a higher risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. So there is a very strong link between, lack of sleep and, your performance. But it's also related to all of these other things, right? If you're not eating right, then your immune system's going to go down. You're probably not going to feel good about yourself. Maybe your emotional responses aren't great, and you're going to want that comfort food. So it kind of just all, I think winds up becoming a little bit of a cycle. But I think the good news is, if we go to the next slide, is now that there's, I think maybe a little bit more of a 2.0 click down awareness about it. There are plenty of, I think, strategies and ideas that could be employed that, again, are just simple and free. So, according to the UK's Sleep Council, you have no control over what happens when you sleep, but you can control what you do throughout the day to prepare for a better night's sleep. And, just some thoughts here to leave you with. In terms of just small things, right? They don't have to be big things of going and buying red lights for your house to turn on there are just small little, incremental things to do to impact your sleep and get you higher quality sleep. So
The last one, what work can be done offline?
Mm-hmm.
I've found that if I'm reading, especially if I'm reading for pleasure, I really want it to be a physical book and not some digital device. It is not relaxing and rejuvenating in the same way if I'm doing it on a Kindle or an iPad.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was strictly Kindle for the longest time, and I recently, in the last year or two, switched back. And I'm not that mad by the pile of my books. And the lighting, the like optional to dim, that one really struck a chord. My husband and I recently installed dimmers on some of our major light switches around the house. And now with smart lighting and all the apps and stuff, all the living room ones that turn on aren't at the full blast bright color. And so at 5 p.m. when it's dark, right, they'll flick on, but they'll still be like very light. And so I didn't even think about that, Chrissy, like your ability to just even impact the lighting inside your own house.
I'm curious, have you noticed any difference, I guess, in either just, kind of your overall like mood and sleep since you've done that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
Yeah, tell
here's
me.
where I notice it.
Yeah.
So my in-laws who live in the Bay Area, we'll go there to visit family once every other month, and they have really bright lighting. And so my father-in-law has installed all the custom can lights, that sort of thing, but none of their lighting is on dimmers. And when I'm at their home, I constantly am turning the lights off because it's just so bright. And I finally just found a nice way to tell them so it didn't seem offensive. I'm just like, hey, I'm not trying to be offensive. Like it's not that all your lights are on, right? It's just too much. And so I for sure notice it when I go to other people's houses now. Absolutely.
Oh, wow. Wow. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Yeah. So I think kind of, if we go to the last slide, just as a closing comment, just a good night's sleep starts the moment you wake up, right? Kind of, can you just get out there for 5 minutes? No contacts, no glasses, just stand, look east, not at the sun. I'm not advocating that. Don't look directly at the sun, but look east. I think, just from there, that's just kind of a one small thing to get started with and see how, it impacts your day. But there are some small things that you can do that, again, are cost effective. Don't take up a lot of time, money, or space to really kind of, I think improve your performance, especially here in the winter when the days are shorter. So. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chrissy. That was excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chrissy.
Yeah. Thank you guys. And now I think it's over to Jody.
Yeah.
I'm still just kind of processing all of that. I live up in Canada these days, and there's an extreme noticeable difference because I moved up from Colorado, which is a very, very sunny place. And it's, I've had to adjust my behavior a lot. And I'm so grateful to have a dog that helps get me out in the morning. And, and again, also with being outside, first thing in the morning, I think there's just an amazing opportunity to be okay, honestly, sometimes I'm out with my dog and it is still dark out, right? But it's amazing how much we can see as the dawn begins to come, and we start to increase that awareness of how our peripheral vision. I don't know that much about eyes, but the rods and the cones and things start to work, and it's pretty cool how just being outside and kind of being in that anticipation of the sun sort of state actually has a really positive impact on my internal well-being, as opposed to if I'm inside and it's dark and I'm, it's 8 o'clock and the sun still isn't up. But so I think that, it's just been really profound for me, and, on my own well-being, just going outside, taking myself outside, which I suppose is a little bit of a good segue perhaps into this next piece around how the light is so important, like the freshness of the air, like just and maybe the air is not super fresh where everybody lives, but I think even just the
Yeah.
change in the air, right? Just like these opportunities to notice subtle things. And I think that's one of the really cool elements that we have access to in the natural world is around the the brilliance and joy in the details. And I don't mean the, like the spreadsheet details, but like if you ever get really close to a blade of grass, where like for me right now, this time of year, there's a little frost etching around every single leaf. And when we're outside and like we start to just slow down a little bit and we, hopefully are out with a friend, which might be a fur friend, but a human friend or a coach friend, and we're out and we're slowing down and we're noticing those details, like that brings me more into my own present awareness. And that makes me feel more alive and it fires up my brain. And all of a sudden, like all kinds of possibilities come to me, right? Like I don't intentionally go out for trail runs to like ruminate or think about things, but I am oftentimes super inspired just by being outside and even just walking and gently moving my body while being aware of all of these like really cool things, like the owl that showed up in the tree on my dog walk this morning, and how wonderfully orienting that is to like, whoa, like what a cool being. And oh, here I am. And I wonder what the day is going to bring. So when we have the opportunity to do that in partnership, with someone who like we trust, they know us, they help us like open doors as coaches do into new ways of thinking. Well, wow, if we're already out in the natural world and the natural world itself is inviting us, like it's saying, hey, like look at me, like check it out. And when we're there as a coach with someone and helping to slow down the process and helping to open those doors, those conversations can just go so deep. And Peter, I know you've done a fair bit of hiking and coaching, and we're all really excited to be chairlift coaching this winter. What are some of your little ahas that you all like about this opportunity to be with the natural environment and be outside as a coach? You're muted, Peter.
Oh,
Thank you, Jody. What I've found is that when I'm coaching outdoors, particularly if we're doing something that requires some exertion, there is an outlet for some of the nervous energy that may be there as we are tackling some tough stuff. And I even think there's something really powerful about walking alongside or hiking or skiing alongside someone where we're both moving in the same direction. We're literally progressing, as opposed to sitting across a desk or computer screens where we have opposing points of view and we're kind of stuck. And doing coaching face to face in a static way doesn't feel as useful of a way of breaking through some of the harder stuff. So every client that I've done it with is often asking for more of it. I haven't had any of them say, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah, that's been my experience as well. And up here in Squamish, with the folks that I can work with locally, I don't even have people that like want to get together inside. They're like, oh, where was that like magical little river that we went and sat by? Can we do that again? And what coaching outdoors can take so many different forms, right? Like we can be walking casually. You can go up a hill, get the heart rate up. How does that relate to what's happening at work? It can be sitting and really quiet too, right? There's so many different environments that we can be in.
Love
So
it.
yes to this the still, and yes to the movement, and something that we've talked about but didn't actually make it in the deck is, what do kids do throughout the school day? Most often they want to go out to recess, and the importance that play has in complex problem solving. And for us as adults, a lot of the time, the chance to be in nature is an opportunity for us to play.
Totally. Yes.
Absolutely. Well, keeping us on our journey and our path, our nature path today, just a few journal reflections before we close out today's session is really just invite you wherever you are. If you're sitting at your desk, you're listening to this later in your car, um, or if you know someone that you feel could be impacted or really use a different way for reflecting as we close out this year and start the new year as well. Maybe some questions to ask around the dinner table or with family or friends. So, what's an impactful experience that you've had in nature in your youth or earlier in your adult life? What stories have you carried with you about the outdoors from earlier in life? Are those serving you? Are they limiting you? I know earlier Peter really wanted to invite any and all experiences, right? Maybe not just the happy ones, but we all come from different backgrounds and walks of life, and nature and the outdoors can bring up different, different things for different people. And maybe there's something there that is limiting you from wanting to enjoy nature and the outdoors once again. And where do you go to most connect with yourself? So these are some reflections that we want to throw out to you all or to share with a friend or family member. And I'm going to keep us going here so we can end on a happy note. So, a little bit of inquiry. What would be a stretch goal for you in the outdoors or nature? Even if that's, hey, for the next 4 mornings, as Chrissy was sharing, I want to go out and just not have the first thing I do open my phone, but maybe go out with my cup of coffee and just stand in the sunlight for 1 minute, right? Something that's just super obtainable that can be a new daily habit or ritual for you. Maybe it's spending 2 hours a week in green space at a park, or I know that we've had a lot of beautiful pictures in our slides that you can get off the internet that could be, your new desktop photo or something new that you put up in your office. Or is it something crazier, like some of us are crazy on this session today, conquering a new black diamond or wanting to try a new winter sport, which we're going to talk about next. All right, Peter, do you want to talk about some of our opportunities in the nature?
Sure. So the one that Mel and Jody and I are launching this winter is chairlift coaching. And we have dates as early as January where we're going to be available to do chairlift coaching in various resorts around the West Coast, the mountain range, and up in British Columbia. But Evolution has a lot of partners and community members who are really passionate around leveraging nature and animals as part of the coaching experiences. And so here are just a sample of some of the ones that exist. Our colleague Janine Davis offers a program called Wolf Connection that is in Southern California, where you get to interact with wolves, not huskies, but actual wolves.
Yep.
She also offers an equine coaching experience, and if you haven't done it, horses are amazing teachers, and they can read our energy in a way that humans can't. And I learned so much from the chance I had to be in an arena with a horse. And don't worry, you don't have to be someone who likes to ride horses. And she's also planning an experience in Kenya for July and August of next year. But those are just a sample of some of the things that exist. I know that there's others on this call that have have thoughts of things that they have done, can do, would love to do.
Yeah, I love that we have this slide up and we have such a growing community of people who are skilled and interested and desirous of going to like little yeses to big yeses to anywhere in between, right? Like, I think that's another piece of the natural world, just like the park photos. We can do outdoor coaching absolutely anywhere, and anywhere can be like close to home, and anywhere can be to Kenya or to Everest Base Camp or to the circuit tour of Mount Blanc. You know, there are some wonderful sort of destination trekking experiences that are physical but are don't require like a super high level of specialization of skill, that make just really, really wonderful containers for an experience where an individual or a team can come together and have a really shared, super powerful, immersive experience in the natural world, and really focus in on any particular angle of what that group wants to leverage. And I think that's one of the fun aspects also of, you know, custom designing programs, right? That
Yeah.
And before we click off this slide, I want to also acknowledge, while Chrissy isn't necessarily doing nature coaching, she's also offering health coaching services as well. And there was a link at the end that we'll get to in a moment that to contact her about that.
Thanks, Peter.
So how does chairlift coaching work? Imagine if we're doing this as a group. We might start in a conference room with windows, or maybe even the parking lot of the ski mountain, and do some type of grounding exercise, welcome and intention setting. We then head out to the mountain, and there's a myriad of ways that we could coach. One would be self-paced, where we give you a handout with some coaching prompts for you to systematically go through and reflect on. You might decide to do it with a partner, either someone you know or someone that's part of the group that you haven't met yet. And that's a chance to have someone listen and also be there to provide that in return and give each other support. And then the third option would be to be coached one-on-one by us, either spot coaching at the base of the mountain, or I know all of us would be excited to go up and do some runs with you as well. And then closing the day with a gathering, some reflection around what is it that you gained insight on and next steps, so that we can check out. Next slide. And I know we're closed, but we wanted to share some of the dates that one or more of us are going to be available in different parts of the United States and Canada. And if this is something that people are interested in for themselves or their team, we are very excited to do some bespoke programs for that.
Super happy to do custom one-on-ones as well. I think that's the third element, is pick a date and just grab a coach, and we'll ski down with you if we can keep up. We'll ride the lift up and do that coaching like Peter was talking about right at the kickoff. It's a great way to do an intensive.
Well, I will keep us on track here and give us a close out. We are going to continue our Thrive Outside series in the new year. So meet us the second Thursday of every month at 2 p.m. Pacific. We'll be here on LinkedIn Live. We'll have additional guests. Thank you, Chrissy, for joining us today. We'll be sending out invites in LinkedIn, but mark your calendar, second Thursday of every month, 2 p.m. We're going to do a quick checkout here and make sure you have an easy way to get a hold of all of us. So if there's questions you had on anything that you learned today, you're interested in what it could look like to co-create some other type of outdoor or nature-focused adventure, we would absolutely love to chat with you about that. All the way down to I've never even been on the snow, and snowshoeing or cross-country skiing sounds like the place to start. We can help with that too. So we want to make sure that it's approachable and inclusive of everyone. And just want to end with what your biggest takeaway was today, what you're looking forward to exploring. And again, here's our contact information for all of us. Myself, Peter, and Jody all work at Evolution. Evolution.team is the website in case you are not seeing our slides today. And then Chrissy as well has a link here to her Calendly. So you can get a hold of her if you're interested in talking more about coaching and just around your health and well-being as well. Does anyone else have anything they would like to add as kind of a closing comments or checkout?
Thank you for making this happen, Mel.
Yeah, thanks for your
Yeah.
wizardry.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Glad you're here,
Amazing.
Chrissy.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.